Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Sarah Upside Down here. I produce content for autism, ADHD, and different mental health things, as well as just combinations of different things that correlate with that. Um, so I've kind of told a little bit of my story, and I just wanted to put it out there that I'm not um, trying to let anybody feel left out as far as like my story of my diagnosis. I do believe in being self-identified because I was self-identified for probably 2 years before I got my diagnosis. I just wanted to have a video that kind of explained why I pursued it and for people that are looking to get that and how that would help. So just wanted to put that out there before I started the rest of this video today. And just let me have a drink of tea real quick. Hold on. Earl Grey in the morning. It's delicious. Anyways, so just wanted to get that out of the way before I started the video today. Because I know there's a lot going on right now in the autism community and just neurodiverse community about self-diagnosis. And I won't really go much into that, but I just wanted to put that out there that I use those words because that was kind of the process that I went through. But, you know, that's a whole nother subject than what I had planned today. So, today I'm going to be doing a video that's kind of related with the masking as well, but it's more about codependency and autism and codependency. Sorry, I had to move one of my drum pieces because it like vibrates somewhat and it'll be distracting me the entire time. I'm super hypersensitive. Uh, anyways, but yeah, I'm kind of going to go over some of the information that I've collected from different sources, and I will put those sources at the bottom or those links at the bottom where you can go and read the full story on some of this stuff. But you know, and of course there's a lot of, I would say, maybe somewhat true on the opposite of codependency that people put in the autism world, as far as some selfishness and narcissism and things like that. But I wanted to speak kind of more on my side as far as masking, and then some of these stories that a few other people have put out that kind of relates to that. So this isn't going to be a super exciting episode. I did take like lots of notes. There's just all these papers down here. So if I'm looking down, that's because like I have to have some sort of organized system in order to, well, basically do any of this. But first we're going to start out with what is codependency. So codependency is a learned behavior that can be passed down from generation to another. It is an emotional and behavioral condition that affects an individual's ability to have a healthy, mutually satisfying relationship. And now I'm not just talking about, you know, your boyfriends, girlfriends, or like husbands, wives, like that type, but, or whatever. But, you know, friendships, relationships, period. It is also known as a relationship addiction because people with codependency often form or maintain relationships that are one-sided, emotionally destructive, or abusive. The disorder was first identified about 10 years ago as the result of studying interpersonal relationships in families with alcoholics. Codependent behavior is learned by watching and imitating other family members who display this type of behavior, which I can attest that, yes, I did have a parent that was very codependent, and I could see the sort of patterns that led to, and how that could be very unhealthy. And just being a past codependent myself and someone who tries not to do that. But anyways, I'm going to go on to the next question. What are characteristics of codependent people? And this is from I believe Psych Central. But anyways, it says an exaggerated sense of responsibility for actions of others, a tendency to confuse love and pity with the tendency to love people they can pity and rescue, a tendency to do more than their share all of the time, a tendency to become hurt when people don't recognize their efforts, an extreme need for approval and recognition, a sense of guilt when asserting themselves, a compelling need to control others, difficulty identifying feelings, problems with boundaries, and chronic anger. And there was quite longer of a list, but I just sort of cut it in half. Questions to ask yourself may be, do you keep quiet and avoid arguments? Are you always worried about others' opinions of you? Have you ever lived with someone who belittles you? Do you doubt your ability to be who you want to be? Are you comfortable with expressing your true feelings to others? Do you feel like a bad person when you make a mistake? Do you think people in your life would go downhill without your constant efforts? Do you frequently wish someone could help you get things done? Are you confused about who you are and where you're going in life? Do you have trouble saying no when asked for help? And do you have trouble asking for help? So that's just sort of like some different things that I've kind of compiled from these couple of websites that sort of explain what codependency is. Now, I'm going to read this story that I found on Spectrum News, which is a really great website for information. And while, yes, I may be talking more about women in the story, this can pertain to men who have masked as well or have kind of gone through different things. And hopefully you can see the pattern while I'm discussing this information on how having codependency issues relates with autism, and I'll try to help put that together. So like I said, this can be for all genders. This story is particularly talking about a female because there is a lot more females that mask and have a harder time getting a diagnosis. So anyways, this story is from Spectrum News, and it says, women with autism hide complex struggles behind masks. Oopsie. Sorry. Gwen is a creative, successful, and intelligent young woman, making her way in the world as an artist. As a child, however, she wished to hide and go unnoticed. From an early age, she felt different from other children and worked hard to cover up parts of her personality by pretending to be normal. Sound familiar? An unhappy childhood gave way to an even harder adolescence. As she struggled to manage increasingly complex relationships with peers, Gwen participated in our study, and her name has been changed to protect her privacy. And you could read more on some of that, all the statistics and different things they kind of compiled together if you click on that link. So it says, in her 20s, Gwen received treatment for anxiety and depression, and as she was helped to reflect on her experiences and feelings, it dawned on her that she might have autism. A psychologist validated her self-assessment with an official diagnosis, and Gwen's life finally started to make sense to her. She now understood why she found it so hard to get along with people at school and work, and whenever she noticed herself feeling overwhelmed in noisy crowded shops, she realized that this was part of the sensory sensitivity that comes with autism. She now derives strength from her sense of belonging to the autism community, and is enjoying a growing sense of pride as a woman with autism. Gwen's story contains themes that other girls and women on the spectrum may recognize: anxiety and alienation, the burden of trying to fit in, and challenges with social relationships. Like Gwen, many women with autism are diagnosed late in life. Others are misdiagnosed or never come to clinical attention at all. And that's why, a lot of us have to self-identify. So, that article kind of gives more information on why that is. And, like I said, that can be for all genders, but I think it's just kind of explaining for women. And I think as women, we usually are more prone to becoming more codependent. With our children and other people, things like that. So, and just trying to fit in, trying to do the social norms. So late diagnosed women, late identified, um, testing done with a professional whom is also autistic to give neurotypicals perspective in order to provide a better process for women on the spectrum. That's kind of what they're trying to do and what they're explaining. So one of them, Robin Stewart, has autism, and her insight helps them to create conditions for participants to express themselves. For example, we encouraged the interviewer to be more literal with her questions. This was especially important when we asked about sensitive topics such as substance abuse, um, substance use, and sex, where there's a temptation to take refuge in abstract, indirect language. I can attest to that whenever I go to therapy. It just goes somewhere else and does not quite go in that direction. I'll just, you know. Like when most participants had struggled emotionally in childhood and adolescence. Usually, doctors, teachers, and parents mislabel these difficulties as something else, such as anxiety, rudeness, awkwardness, or depression. Amen, all of those, every single one. The reasons for the abuse varied, but they all appeared to relate to the social difficulties of autism in the context of being female. For instance, one woman linked an experience of sexual abuse to not reading people to be able to tell if they're being creepy. Another said that they were uncertain about social rules, meant that she was not sure whether she could say no to an abusive partner's demands. Others felt the teenage social isolation meant they lacked opportunities to develop their ideas about staying safe through discussions with female friends. So, the secret identity. To have autism, a phenomenon called camouflaging, um, they said they wear a mask and adopt a persona that is carefully constructed from copying the behaviors of popular peers or fictional characters, or by studying psychology books. Most of the women said they found the effort of passing as neurotypical to be exhausting and disorienting, and many thought it contributed to their delayed diagnosis or even finding out, self-identifying, whatever, anything that would even go in that direction. They probably just thought they were messed up, like I thought, or just like something wasn't right and you're an alien and, you just don't get it. There are no tests for camouflaging, and this is a major barrier to clinicians and researchers understanding and helping women on the spectrum. Of course, there is great ones out there that, maybe have educated themselves in some of those areas, and it helps a lot. But anyways, I'm just going to try to make this as quick as I can. I just have so much information. I'm like, blah, 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 pulling it all over the place. So, with reading about what codependency is and reading this story, like I was going to kind of pull out some of my own story, which I'm going to do a tiny bit, but reading that story, I was like, just, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like I know that a lot of you probably relate to this, and I know that it just irks me that I did have complete lack of knowledge on any of these things growing up. And just knowing what codependency was in the first place. Now, when you mask and you are putting on this persona and you are like, being someone that everybody wants you to be, that's kind of masking and codependency together, because you're hiding yourself, you're not being authentic, there's just a lot that's probably torn inside of your soul, whatever, because after so much time of doing that, you don't even know how to have self-care, which is, knowing some of the things that you like and dislike, or knowing that you maybe don't like to be touched. Like me, I don't like to be touched at all, really, and I didn't know that forever. And a lot of these things are just so acceptable, but I would just squeeze my fist, or I would just something, and bear with whatever was going on in a situation. And then just as far as relationships, I definitely can attest to being closer to what the person that I'm, becoming, besties with or whatever. And it turns out that like I actually have my own brain, and I have to figure that out later. So, and that there is so much in here that I'm not even using my potential because I just am over here masking for like 20 so years, whatever, and not being able to come out as myself. So, I mean, when you like figure out that you're autistic, men, women, both, whatever your gender is, anything, like it's not just finding out that you're autistic, it's finding out like like this is a whole giant rabbit hole. It's and I already tend to like string a bunch of information together like I did with this, and I just like, I would be that detective with the strings all over the wall, like putting all the pictures up, just like a little obsessed. Okay, not a little, a lot, whatever. But if you're not able to like see that those patterns, like, okay, I'm so good at seeing patterns, but I can't see my own life patterns with relationships, with people, what you have continued to do. And I would just get in these relationships and I would either do everything for them. It was like they were, an idol almost or something because they accepted me and I thought I was being myself. I really wasn't. And I mean, there's probably parts of ways that I was, but then being in like, relationships like, with, as a couple or whatever, I was extremely codependent. Like, there is no chance in, where that I would have ever found out that I was autistic if I didn't stop doing so much for everybody else. Now, I would say that once I figured that out, I started going to codependency groups and like I really started looking into what that is. This was all like in the line of when I was finding out about autism. I hadn't got diagnosed yet. I hadn't, I was trying to like look into all of it, and I was going to these codependency groups, and by going to those and learning how to like just be some sort of caring for myself, even towards my kids, like just would not be eating and not doing things and whatever. And I already struggle with time and like eating and all that stuff with autism, but it would be even worse, because I would just do and do and do and do and do. And like I would forget to do all the basic things that I already struggle with as being autistic in some ways, and like just not being, you know what I mean? And I just wouldn't take care of myself. So, linking these things together has really changed me and helped me to be more in tune to myself, and just like create some type of balance. And I'll be honest, whenever I first like figured out like, okay, I'm officially I'm codependent and like all this stuff and whatever, like I kind of like flipped a switch and I was like, okay, now I'm going to be completely not. And so I had a hard time, I guess. Then it almost went to selfishness, which I think is why like codependents themselves can actually have, certain traits of narcissism and things, because they live so much in those situations or being in those type of relationships that they kind of become that, or they just are built up with anger and things like that. And I already don't really do well with my emotions and things, so that was not healthy. And really, sometimes the other person doesn't know. You're just enabling things, and so it can go both ways on some things, and sometimes the other person is just a total selfish whatever. So, but in essence of just figuring that out, it helped me see like some of the stuff that I got myself into, some of the trouble, like being autistic and not seeing the intentions of others. And then, being kind of codependent to make sure that like I'm not totally freaking everybody out or like info dumping constantly or whatever. Just being what they want me to be, like I would just do what they want me to do. I would probably be like Edward Scissorhands going into that house, and like because I thought they had good intentions, and like I relate so much to that movie in a lot of ways because of that type of situation, and that happened so much with me growing up, just totally being oblivious. So think about relationships and things like that, and being autistic and like not seeing those intentions, and you just see people as what they're showing you. I mean, think about how many unhealthy relationships. Let's not talk about mine. I'm not going to go there. I'm just saying it's not a good idea. so anyways, this is already going longer than I thought, but I'm going to go over some of the things that can help, and then we will be done. And y'all can be less bored with me. Just kidding. Because I have great self-esteem. So anyways, these are some of the tips that I took from different places online on how you can heal from codependency. And I hope like some of this made sense. It's hard when I'm getting anxiety because I'm just like trying to shove it all into one video. But just really like digging deep yourself, like knowing some of your personality traits, knowing some of how your brain works, knowing patterns that you go through. If you're good at picking up patterns, look at yourself, see what you're doing. And it's just like, when you're trying to fix a computer or you're trying to build something and you're missing a piece, you need to find those missing pieces yourself. Okay. And I'm not saying the puzzle things and blah, 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 but I do love jigsaw puzzles. And if you're missing a piece, well, I'm just going to turn She-Hulk, okay? So looking into that and trying to just, you know what I'm saying? Just finding that for yourself. Not just always listening to what everybody else is saying that you are, and just trying to figure some of those things out, And maybe someone else this pertains to, maybe not yourself. I mean, don't just shove it down their throat, but like, uh, be a good friend and try to bring maybe that up to them so that they can, take some steps to heal from that. So anyways, healing from codependency and bad habits. It might not be your intention to control them, but over time your partner may come to depend on your help and do less for themselves. In turn, you might feel a sense of fulfillment or purpose from the sacrifices you make for your partner. And more tea. Once you have gotten a handle on what codependency actually looks like, take a step back and try to identify any recurring patterns in your current and past relationships. Simply acknowledge these patterns. Sorry, I don't know why my brain wants to do that. In your current and past relationships. Simply acknowledge these patterns is a key to overcoming them. Partners trust themselves and each other. Both partners feel secure in their own self-worth. That's a big one. I need to do a whole new video about that, but I had and still somewhat like self-esteem, self-worth, things like that, and that is a huge thing about codependency. I mean, we can look however we want on the outside, masking and put our makeup on, blah, 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 but like sometimes the inside there's just some stuff going on in there. Partners can compromise. In a healthy relationship, your partner should care for your feelings, and you should feel safe to communicate your emotions and needs. You also feel able to voice an opinion that differs from your partner's, or say no to something that conflicts with your own needs. Boundaries. Oh my goodness, boundaries. Now that has saved my life. And you think you're talking about like other people, like it's not, it's outside of your home, or no, it's like sometimes you need to have those for your family, your parents, whatever. Yeah. Listen with empathy, but But don't stop there. Unless you're involved with the problem, don't offer solutions or try to fix it for them. Practice polite refusals. Try, I'm sorry, but I'm not free at the moment, or I'd rather not tonight, but maybe another time. Question yourself before you do something. Ask yourself the following questions. Why am I doing this? Do I want to do this, or do I feel I have to? Will this drain any of my resources? Yes! All of them. I'm just kidding, but like a lot of times it's super draining. Will I still have energy to meet my own needs? Oh my goodness. Whole video could be on like figuring out my needs. I cannot talk today, guys. Healthy support might involve talking about your problems to get new perspectives, listening to your partner's troubles or worries, discussing possible solutions with them rather than for them, offering suggestions or advice when asked, then stepping back to let people make their own decisions, offering compassion and acceptance, etc., letting go of negative self-talk, taking care of health and do things you enjoy.